And The Flash, issue number 1, is written by Si Spurrier with art by Mike Deodato Jr., colors by Trish Mulvihill, and letters by Hassan Otsmane Elru. And this issue begins with Max Mercury and Bart Allen attempting to run into the Speed Force, but are kicked back, leaving Max with the vision of a bison, discerning it to being a representation of the Speed Force and having a message that it's in pain. This is the inciting incident that drives the main focus of the issue, which is that something is wrong with the Speed Force. Because of this, Wally has been experiencing pain when using his powers, and the occasional glitch, which seems like Wally is passing between dimensions, of which one of these times leaves him with the words, "The Uncoiled are coming." It would also seem that Gorilla Grodd is aware of a problem, as during one of their encounters, he gives his condolences to the Flash, and is reported that he has been kidnapping people and trapping them in stasis bubbles. Even Mr. Terrific is made aware of an issue with the Speed Force, as one of his scientists tells him that the universe is on the verge of implosion, and that killing all of the speedsters is probably the best course of action. We also catch up with Wally's family and discover that Linda is having feelings of unimportance since she is no longer connected to the Speed Force, and according to Irie, something is going on with Jay as we get a few panels of him hanging out shirtless, and in one moment, we see a small shadowy figure. The issue then comes to a head when Wally is once again battling Grodd and his forces, when a reoccurring indigo streak comes in, revealing to be a guy named Chad. Grodd captures him and tries to throw Chad in one of these bubbles, but something goes wrong and he ends up reatomizing in a horrific way. During this time, Grodd escapes and the reader is left with the image of a red alien-like figure covered in spikes, who may or may not be one of the Uncoiled. And I will say at the conclusion of this issue, I was left with feelings. I mean, on one hand, I do find the issue to be an interesting start, as it does pose a lot of fascinating questions. Like, we know something's up with the Speed Force. You got Max's bison vision, Wally having some pains, the threat of the Uncoiled coming. What's Grodd up to? How did Chad get his powers? What's going on with Jay? Will Iris ever be happy again? Who is the red alien? And how many licks does it take to get to the Tootsie Center of a Tootsie Pop? You know, typical first issue stuff. Set up for the story to come. And honestly, I wasn't sure how I was gonna feel going into this story, because when I heard that Si Spurrier was gonna take sort of like a cosmic horror route, I'm thinking to myself, that doesn't really sound like it fits the Flash all that well. But after the scene where Chad gets his David Cronenberg on, I gotta say, my curiosity is piqued, and I would like to see more of that. But effectively, that is what comprises this first issue. Questions. Lots of questions, lots of setup, and that is where the general interest in the story comes from. And I would like to say that my fears of Si Spurrier taking over have been put to rest. However, there definitely were some things about this issue that kind of left me shaking my head and rolling my eyes. For one, Wally not being upfront to Mr. Terrific about his glitches and overall issues that he's experiencing with the Speed Force. And conversely, Mr. Terrific not telling Wally that he knows something is going on with the Speed Force and that his scientists are telling him that they probably have to kill all speedsters to stop the world from imploding. This is big, huge, apocalyptic level stuff. Not things you want to be keeping to yourselves, people. Especially because Mr. Terrific and Wally have been in the superhero game for so long, and they've also been working together for the duration of Jeremy Adams' run, and I just don't think that's something they would keep to themselves. It's very CW teen drama-ish, with characters, you know, not being upfront with anything, and this will inevitably lead to more problems and more conflict down the line that may not have necessarily been there if everybody had just laid everything out on the table from the jump. I mean, am I calling that lazy writing? Yeah. And as I stated in my review of The Flash issue 800 from Si Spurrier's, you know, one little mini story in there, I am still a little concerned of what he intends to do with the relationship of Wally and Linda, because the way he's sort of setting it up and the tone that I'm getting from it, as well as the dialogue, tells me that he's looking to maybe go for some marital conflict in the story, because Wally and Linda are one of the last few, you know, rock solid comic book couples, and it would just be, yeah, I would not enjoy that at all if they just randomly started having problems. But it may not necessarily be that. Maybe it is just she is feeling a little lost now that she doesn't have those powers, combined with maybe a little bit of postpartum. And you know, maybe in about 3 or 4 issues, she'll be back to normal. Or at least by the end of this first story arc. Because I do remember Grodd's one piece of dialogue of giving his condolences to Wally, and I am hoping he's talking about knowing that there's something wrong with the Speed Force and that something is coming, because it seems like he's working off of some kind of future knowledge. But again, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking to myself, God, is he talking about Wally and Linda? And I just would not want to see that because, you know, much like the not talking things out from the beginning, it feels very CW-like. Oh, and speaking of Grodd, there was another line of dialogue in this issue after Wally's first encounter with Grodd and his forces, where a reporter is asking him if Grodd may be into the whole idea of defunding the police, which is why he is taking police in the first place, as explained in the story. And that was a moment where I just kind of had to close the book for a moment, sit back and think, what the hell are you talking about? Is this your first day in Central City? Have you been here for none of Grodd's attacks? Do you know anything about Gorilla Grodd at all? Because, you know, if that reporter knew anything about Gorilla Grodd, she should know, at least by reading reports, that the guy doesn't even care about defunding the police. He wants to destroy the entire human race. Gorilla Grodd is a character that watches Planet of the Apes and goes, those motherfuckers are spitting. It's just such an odd and out of place piece of dialogue, and I'm thinking to myself, why is it there? And then there's this thing with the Uncoiled. I really like that name, by the way, and I'm very interested to see what that's about. However, the main premise of the story, again, is that something is wrong with the Speed Force. Again, I mean, I get it. The Flash, the Speed Force, it's all intertwined. Sometimes something gets in the Speed Force, causes it to go wonky. But much like with Batman's battle with the Joker, occasionally I'd like to read something a little bit different, especially in the last few years, because they, you know, that was a big point of Joshua Williamson's run, where there was so many things wrong with the Speed Force throughout, and even bits and pieces with Jeremy Adams' run as people were just messing with the Speed Force. Why not some extra dimensional beings that aren't trying to screw with the Speed Force? I don't know, it just gives me a bit of been there, done that kind of vibe. Deodato's art was decent for the most part though, because yeah, there were some solid visuals, and anytime Wally was like slipping into this alternate dimension, I think Deodato captures like the sort of otherworldly feel of that. Overall though, I will say that I do think it is a serviceable first issue that does ask and pose some interesting questions, combined with a collection of some very odd choices that may or may not make readers roll their eyes. And combined with the storyline of, once again, the Speed Force is in danger, will probably collectively make the Flash readership debate about this book. And as for me personally, I'm kind of landing like right in the middle of, I don't necessarily hate it, but I don't really like it either. And with that, I'm going to score The Flash, issue number 1, a 5 out of 10. So The Flash, issue number 1, what did you think about this book if you've read it? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please leave your comments in the comment section below. And if you like this video, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with some friends, subscribe if you're not subscribed already, and ring that notification bell for more comic book content. And if you're wondering what to watch next, consider one of these 2 videos. Alright, take care, have a great day, and as always, stay geeky.